Welcome to Powered by People, the business podcast from Three Hills that explores how people strategies transform organizations. In each episode, we meet an inspirational business leader accountable for their business's readiness to win in tomorrow's world. I'm your host, Tim Pointer, a Chief People Officer and an operating partner at Three Hills, where we work to advance organizational performance across our portfolio of outstanding businesses. Joining me today is Claire Smith, Chief People Officer with a celebrated background in evolving businesses through commercial, high-engagement people strategies. At Mortgage Advice Bureau, her work won the overall winner prize at the Business Culture Awards. At Movera, Claire built upon her reputation, creating outstanding workplaces. And now at law firm gunnercooke, itself known for disrupting its sector, Claire continues her journey of creating winning businesses with a bespoke culture, and always led by the metrics. Let's go hear from Claire. Claire, welcome to the Powered by People podcast.
Thank you, Tim. Really pleased to be here today.
Your career journey has always been about people, but in different ways. So just for everyone tuning into the podcast today, just give us a sense of how yours referred to it as a squiggly career.
I do, yeah.
How did your squiggly career happen?
Started off life as a solicitor. I had this passion to want to help people. I think I'd watched too much Ally McBeal and LA Law.
Oh, I loved Ally McBeal.
Ally McBeal, right? Yeah, I mean, the kids talk about Suits. I'm like, no, Ally McBeal. And so I think I'd watched a little bit too much. Really passionate about helping people and wanted to get into the legal profession. And I don't think I was a very good lawyer. So I didn't last very long as a practicing solicitor. I was about 5 years and moved into a business development role. I think building upon my skills of wanting to be with people, work with people, spend time with people, I spent 15 very happy years in business development in the professional services sector. Lots of brilliant stories that we haven't got time for today. But I think the relevance of both my career as a solicitor and in business development, I worked for organisations that had amazing cultures. Two in particular, one was a law firm, one was an outsourced communications business. They were both at the time top 3 best companies to work for. So I'd been a beneficiary of amazing cultures and really had one eye on, could I do that? Could I, I love people, I love making a difference. My legacy is I want to have made a difference to people. And so in 2020, I was given an opportunity to kind of take the business development skills and transfer them into rather than external relationships, internal relationships. And my journey into people and culture, as I call it, or the opportunity back in 2020 with Mortgage Advice Bureau was my first kind of, chance to step into this world, and I have never looked back.
So let's talk about Mortgage Advice Bureau. But when you were given that opportunity, where was the organisation and where did it need to move to?
So Mortgage Advice Bureau, multi-million pound PLC, at the time had around 250 employees, looking after around 2,500 self-employed mortgage brokers around the UK. So very much a service business. So fast growth, the company had doubled in headcount quite quickly. It had a very successful time during the pandemic. And I think I could see engagement perhaps wasn't where it should be. Churn was quite high, it crept up. Metrics like your Glassdoor score wasn't brilliant. And so I kind of had a conversation with the leadership team and the very entrepreneurial, inspiring CEO to say, I think you've got a few things creaking here. So you've seen fast growth, brilliant. Business appears to be doing well, but the people on the ground aren't happy. And sooner or later, that is going to filter out to your customers. That language of talking about the customer really resonated with the leadership and the CEO. So I ran a project for 6 months at the side of my desk almost and looked at the mission, the vision, the culture, the values to see, what could be done. And it kind of went from there. And one of the things that was really key for me was getting that buy-in. So I was given the opportunity. So admittedly did work with some expert consultants that were brought in externally, but actually brought together a team of people from within the business. And I say that still was one of the secrets of the success of the work we did, bringing together a group of people from within the business. And that was different tenures, different hierarchies, different departments. And I talk about sometimes that loyalty breeds blind spots. I was kind of given a nudge as to, pick them, they'll be good for this group. Because they were the positive people that always put their hands up for things. Whereas I wanted what you might call the cynics. I wanted people who'd been there, done it, seen things not work. I wanted a real mix. And so that was key for me. So I opened up the invitation for people to say why they want to join. And I approached a few of the cynics to say, I think your voice would be really valuable in this project. And I talked very fondly about Sharon from finance. And Sharon went from being a cynic to a hero almost over the course of the project because we brought her along the journey.
You understand the client experience.
Yes.
Because you've got the business development angle. So you're seeing that immediate link between the net promoter score for the organisational experience and the employee experience internally.
Yes.
And I wonder if, because you're coming from that business background, that very commercial edge background, your voice has a different cut through.
I think it did help. I really do think it did help. I think being able to translate what some people might call the fluffy stuff and putting a commercial, spin on that.
But you didn't talk fluffy. You led this conversation with metric.
Absolutely.
Metric.
And the anecdotal was almost like the icing on the cake. You are going to lose good people. You've lost good people. So it definitely helped because I was able to demonstrate, for example, when I joined Mortgage Advice Bureau, they were 100% reliant on recruitment agencies for bringing talent into the business. So I was able to demonstrate to the CFO, if we are able to improve internal referrals or improve our external reputation in terms of people wanting to walk towards us for jobs, we will have less reliance on recruitment agencies and therefore there will be a saving. So I definitely lent upon my commercial experience to translate into metrics because all my life in business development and having been a solicitor and time recording in 6-minute units, I had to look at the numbers. Whether you're a PE house, whether you're a PLC, people do look at churn. So I do always have one eye on it, but I do talk about it with a little caveat that some churn is healthy.
Yeah, and you don't want 100% retention, but you also don't want 50% churn.
Exactly that. And I think there's plenty of research that shows the impact on businesses when you're having to bring in new people to replace roles.
Absolutely.
So one of the studies I'd read was it takes somebody 9 months to get up to speed or longer, particularly in the legal sector, perhaps replacing a great solicitor or a partner, take 12 months to get them back up to speed. So you can see the cost.
So you've established that support at the top of the organisation, and then you were just starting to talk about then reaching out to the pockets of the organisation that you had sort of been told not to reach out to.
Because they're a cynic. So, and I talk about cynics as being the realists who have perhaps seen a lot. But actually, if you listen to why something didn't work last time, you sometimes get these absolute nuggets. So I had a group of people that ranged from me who'd been there a matter of weeks and months through to people that had been there 17, 18 years. The culture design group, they were so powerful in the work then we went on to do.
And what does that mean? When you talk about culture design, because the word culture can do a lot of heavy lifting when we talk about business. What does it mean for you? What were you tasking that group to look into?
That group were to look at, was the mission fit for purpose that had been established already? And there weren't any values in the business, so there weren't any behaviours that people knew how to show up for work. So we tested what was the mission like, and we also tested what the culture felt like, the culture design group. It was really important to lean upon their different experiences. So we did ask questions like, what does it mean to you for working at Mortgage Advice Bureau? What do you really love? What frustrates you? If Mortgage Advice Bureau was a superhero, what super strengths would they have? And it was very relatable. So we spent quite a bit of time in workshops. We did surveys. We spoke to the exec team. And I think we were recognising that there was an aspirational vision of where we wanted to be. So what set out to be a bit of a let's test the mission, we actually redefined the entire mission, vision and values of the business with that group. And they presented it back to leadership. They created it. They presented it back. And there were some caveats. We said, this isn't a wordsmith moment, leadership. This is what the people have created for the people. Because they were living and breathing all the values and behaviours that made MAB so special. But also they identified the stretches. And that's where we ended up. We had a completely redefined mission, vision and values, which we called DNA. And we badged it all into something beautiful called our mabology. So it really...
MAB,
yes.
Mortgage Advice Bureau, mabology.
Yes.
Got it. And how did the leadership team feel about that? Because was there some resistance to, hang on a minute, I'm here to put together the strategic plan. Thank you very much. I'm here to define what culture is required for us to fulfill our objectives. How did that conversation play out?
I think the metrics spoke for themselves. So we could see there were some challenges and I took them on a journey. So yes, the culture design group were empowered, but I regularly kept in touch with the CEO and the exec team, bringing them on that journey and...
No surprises.
No surprises. And I guess building that trust and saying that by making an internal group responsible for creating something for the people was so powerful, but also having an entrepreneurial founder of a business, that's when you lean into all those strengths, something different, something new, something the competition aren't doing. It was leaning into that narrative as well. And then kind of like the ego bit, we might win some awards for the work we're doing.
And when you're working with entrepreneurs, they are risk takers.
Yes.
Otherwise they wouldn't disrupt. Otherwise they wouldn't create. Otherwise they wouldn't love doing something new that doesn't currently exist. So it feels like you're leaning into that.
Yes, you're absolutely right. Now, did I think that they would wholly accept the bright pink branding? It was definitely a case of bringing them on the journey. And because it was so different and it was so powerful. But of course, you've got some strong voices in the culture design group as well. It's easy for me to say here, looking back, we did have the support of the leadership, but it hadn't been there previously. So we did a lot of work to bring them on the journey, show them what good would look like and the impact that would have.
So designed by the people for the people.
Yes.
What did they come up with and implement?
They didn't just want to be about mortgages. So this is about creating an aspirational vision that would set the business up for success and growth. So they wanted to be the leading financial partner through life's key moments. And I can still remember that these years on. So it was about creating a vision that they would get excited about as a business and also broadening it beyond what the business did back then. So set up for growth. And then the values or the DNA were, we limited it to 6 and we made it really engaging. One of my favourite values or DNA strands that we created was share the love, because people really looked out for one another and we really drew upon that strength and the richness of that, culture that was positive, because there's nothing seriously going wrong. It was just there were a few cracks starting to show, so we embraced the really great stuff. So share the love was about looking out for one another, being team players, being kind, acting with kindness, and just it really lent into that strength. There were other aspirational values. So there were some challenges around seeing things through. So very much the magpie effect of moving on from one project to another, not taking a
shiny thing.
And I see that in lots of businesses, and I quite like that. I'm a bit magpie myself, but it was very much, we'd just like to finish a project before we jump on to the next. So we embrace that as a stretch. So one of the other values or the DNA was see things through. And this is about how we approach projects. And then the final bit of work we did after, we'd completed all these workshops and we'd created the values, was to sit with the exec team and say, like, you need to look at these values, look at these behaviours, and we need to have an open and honest conversation. What are your stretches and strengths? Because no one was going to be perfect, all 6, all the time, 24/7. Wanted to create a space where the exec team knew that was okay, because we wanted our colleagues to think it was okay not to be absolutely brilliant at seeing things through all the time.
So the first group that were held accountable to those 6 were the exec team.
Yes. But I'd got the buy-in, I'd kept the team and the exec team up to speed with what we're doing. I had an exec sponsor who also looked through the lens of the exec team as well, just checking in that there weren't going to be any surprises. But actually, it was a really comfortable space to say and work together as a leadership team to say, I know I'm not great at this, but I know you're great at that, and work together. And it was a really powerful session. I remember it really, really well, because it was a really powerful session to see some vulnerabilities, but also see people take pride. So one of the other values, and I won't go through all 6, one of the other values was break the mould, which really lent into the entrepreneurial spirit of we do things differently around here. We are innovative. We want to break the mould. We want to shake up the mortgage industry. So there were some really, and these were created by that culture design group. So they understood the culture, they understood where the leaders wanted to go in the business, they understood our clients, and they understood the end consumer, which is the people who are getting the mortgages through mortgage advice bureaus.
And what was the role of Sharon from accounts?
Sharon from accounts. Brilliant, Sharon. So for me, one of the things I wanted to measure as successful output was, did everyone in the business know the role they had to play in helping the business achieve the vision? So Sharon in finance. Sharon had been with the business 17 years, had a really important role, but didn't quite know how important it was. So with a vision of being the leading financial partner through life's key moments, we did a secondary piece of work to help people understand their role in that, so that Sharon knew the role she was doing day in, day out in the finance team, supporting the mortgage brokers, was helping us transform the mortgage industry, provide an amazing customer experience, so that if she did her job with a smile on her face, she saw things through, she perhaps broke the mould by coming up with new and innovative ways to do a particular process, she would understand her role in that. And she was one of the key culture ambassadors in the embedding of the programme. And she knows I talk about it in these sessions, and she knows I do that. Because
Shout out to her.
Shout out to Sharon.
When you look back on it now, how do you measure the success?
There's the metrics. So that was the black and white. NPS score improved from 13 to 32. Churn reduced from 22% to I think it was 14%. Gross profit went up by 20%. So we had these really lovely metrics. But for me, it was the engagement within the business soared. But then, as you know, we had the external recognition at the Business Culture Awards, which I still smile with such pride now, because to see the team, we were a small team, there was only 4 of us, to see that team get that external recognition for the work they'd done from external organisations and judges was, it's still a career highlight for me, because that team worked so hard. I'm so proud of what we achieved. It was great. And the legacy lives on. I still see the team soaring now. The business is doing fantastic. The growth they've seen. So Mobology lives on.
So you moved on.
Yes.
You went to Movera.
Yes.
So a business, I'm not sure everyone will understand what Movera does. So can you just give us an insight into them and what challenge you were brought in to address?
Movera is a legal services business. Best known for probably being, I think they're probably the 3rd largest conveyancing practice in the UK, and had seen significant growth. They had changed ownership. They had changed leadership. There were several areas that the new leadership team wanted to focus on. Growth was one of them, but also to look at the employee value proposition. So the role was to come in and to look at everything from talent attraction, retention, engagement, learning development, the classics. That sector had been through such a tough time. Again, the sector had done very, very well during the pandemic because there were lots of benefits afforded to home buyers and people moving home. The sad outcome of that across the sector was burnout, stress. A lot of people left the profession. So it wasn't dissimilar to back in 2007, 2008, the property market, the people doing the jobs really took a hit. So I walked into a business that was really ambitious, that had great backing, that had a new, energetic, ambitious leadership team, but they were up against some challenges from external forces post-pandemic. And they'd acquired businesses and they'd grown.
Organic growth, and then you've got your inorganic growth in terms of then looking at the businesses that you're acquiring.
Yeah.
And how do you integrate? How do you take the best of both to create the new organisation?
Yeah.
So how did you look at that?
I've seen businesses get very excited about it has to be the same exact culture in every single part of the business. Whereas I'm a big believer that you harness the great bits about those individual businesses. For me, it was about looking at the businesses that had come together, what were their strengths, what were the great bits about their cultures, and mapping that out. Mavera had a really clear vision. They wanted to make sure the moving home process was better for people, partners and clients. So they had a North Star. So whether you were part of an acquisition in one of the businesses that were based in a different part of the country, for example in London, versus the business in Stockport, it was that North Star, and the leadership were very visible and very confident in talking about that vision all the time. And I think that was something I was able to harness and say we're all going in the same direction, but respecting the cultures and the great things about those businesses that had come together.
Can you give us an example?
One of the things I did notice was clients, particularly in the London office, expected their lawyers to be available at different hours to the clients perhaps of the Northern office. Hiring practices were also very different because we had different kinds of lawyers doing different types of work in different offices, and that's okay too. So an induction programme for a lawyer in London might be slightly different to an induction programme for a lawyer up in Stockport.
And I know you've talked before about red carpet in,
yes.
red carpet out. What does that mean?
So the red carpet in, red carpet out, I have a romantic vision that you can create this amazing experience on the way in and a really great experience on the way out. I know it's not perfect for every situation, but that's my kind of guideline. So there were different induction processes depending on where you were being recruited into the business. So first of all, we asked the recent new joiners to just say, what was it like? What was good? What didn't work? What didn't you like? And candidates have chosen to join you. Okay, they've chosen to join you as a business. You've had a lovely experience, probably sent something beforehand as a little welcome gift. They arrive on first day. The line manager's not ready. Their induction process is a little bit hit and miss. And so because the line manager's perhaps a bit under pressure, let's put in mandatory training on the first day because that's really going to make them glad they chose us. I know as a non-practicing solicitor how important it is to do that training. But I again have this romantic notion that if we could move away from the language of mandatory training and create a culture of that's just the way we do things around here. We do the right thing for the clients. We do the right thing for each other. We do the right thing for the business. So the piece of work we did at Mavera was unpacking that and building what would be a fantastic welcome day. So we did move towards having in person. We also moved to having, if we had a number of starters in London and Manchester, we also tried bringing them together so that they all join on the same day. And then we also had a buddy system as well. So these are some of the small steps we're taking to try and create this red carpet experience in and making sure people felt that it was a personalised experience. So lots of companies do fantastic new welcome boxes. I think they soared in businesses like, soared in lockdown. But lots of businesses I've seen haven't really personalised them. So again, we put in a bit of a getting to know you before you joined at Mavera. We'd ask some questions and then tailor the welcome box because there's nothing worse than if you've sent a little miniature bottle of gin to somebody who doesn't drink, or you've sent some beautiful chocolates to someone who's diabetic. So we would try and find out a little bit about the person before they joined, to personalise that welcome box. So these are all little incremental steps, and what we saw then, because we would regularly ask new starters, is that onboarding experience, those ratings go up. So you could start to see, because I think the studies, lots of studies, Gallup, I think, reported years ago now that, 12% of people will leave within the first year of employment if they don't have a great onboarding experience.
That first day is really important. Mm-hmm. And it's when we go home and someone says, how was it? How was your first day? What are your first impressions? What's your boss like? What are the team like? Beginnings and endings are very important.
Really important. And I smile when I talk about red carpet out. I'm not naive. I know we can't always have that red carpet experience on the way out. But where you can, so for example, at Mavera, we were looking at who was ambitious and coming in and wanted to shoot the stars. How can we help them get on their next stage of their career journey? Hopefully with Mavera. But if it wasn't with Mavera, how could we make sure that when they went for their next role, they had a really nice departure from the firm? And I think if you can, do it. And I switched to things like the exit interviews as, calling them a farewell chat, and taking them from being an online survey to an in-person. We did ask some questions to be able to track, but then I would always have a face-to-face or an online to say, come on, tell me, what's the word on the street? What didn't you want to put on your form? What do I need to know? And also asking people, would you come back? And I think looking at that, beginning and end moments, those moments that kind of are important to people. Another lovely thing we did at Mavera as part of this whole looking at this red carpet in was we redesigned how we articulated the employee value proposition. And we started replaying it back to the internal audience, just to remind people of all the benefits. So then when we went out talking about the EVP externally, other colleagues would start talking about it on social media as part of the attraction piece. Another thing we changed was we'd worked hard, got these people in, we'd reinvigorated their welcome day, we'd looked at their induction onboarding. When it came to probation, it used to be just a letter from the people team. So I was just like, let's make this a bit more exciting. People then were like, okay, so just things like a card to say, congratulations, well done, delighted that you joined us. We are also looking for people just like you, reminded them of the referral scheme. And because we're in touch through the process and asking how things had gone, if people were really happy and engaged, would you mind giving a Glassdoor review? So we were already sending a communication out, but we weren't actually hitting those moments when people were really happy and engaged, i.e. probation passed, to then say, would you please help us with future employees? And if I can just come full circle to what I talked about, one of the areas I was brought in to look at was the whole kind of talent shortage. So what we were also able to look at was, from a talent shortage perspective, what can we do with people who haven't perhaps been a property lawyer in the past? So we created a whole campaign around, you didn't need to have a degree to work in law. And we went out and targeted a whole new pool of talent of people that had never been near a law firm or a conveyancing practice, to people who perhaps spent 12 months in practice, to also experienced hires, and rolled out a series of academies to grow our own talent. And that was phenomenal, because then we opened up to a whole wider pool of talent. But the richness that those different individuals brought, particularly if they had customer service experience and they'd worked in client-facing environments, it was phenomenal. So much so that the Learning Development Academy, the Mavera Academy, went on again to win some awards, which was fantastic for the work they did, and also helped that talent grow within the business, which was key to the growth. So yeah, it was a really nice experience, which started off looking at the EVP and the problems of talent attraction, and it was just a great experience and worked really well for Mavera and their growth.
And now you're a gunnercooke.
Yeah.
Now, what's fascinating here is we started talking about MAB, Mortgage Advice Bureau, overall winner of the Business Culture Awards. Gunnercooke, also an overall winner of the Business Culture Awards. So you've gone from a high culture environment to another high culture environment, and again in the legal sector.
Yes.
So what's attracted you to gunnercooke? And I know you've been there a relatively limited amount of time, but what are you working on at the moment?
gunnercooke. So I can't leave the legal sector, Tim. I just love it too much. So I've always had one eye on gunnercooke because entrepreneurial, founder-led, breaking the mold. They have set their stall out very early on with looking at a model where you could come in as a consultant and you could work for yourself under the gunnercooke umbrella. So wow, it's a complete game changer 15 years ago, and there's now, there's other models out there. But gunnercooke also set their stall out in this whole concept of design your life. So they wanted to create an environment where partners could join, design their life to suit them, whether that was a work-life balance or whether it was balancing their career aspirations. And that has been just, their model. Co-founders who aren't just saying they want to lead with purpose, but a real strong voice of, we definitely have a purpose. So gunnercooke's purpose, they want to leave the world in a better place than they found it. Really simple. And I'm like, this is brilliant. So I've had one eye on them. They've grown. They've got over 500 partners across the globe. They've opened offices in Chicago. They've opened offices in Germany. So fantastic growth. Really grateful that, got the opportunity to go in and work with gunnercooke because I believe in what they're trying to do. So I got there and thought, but is it all true? Is it all really, is there this purpose there? And this message is constant, want to leave the world in a better place than we found it. Whether that's for our communities, our people, our partners. So I've been there, like you say, a short period of time. And the investment in the people, the partners and communities is phenomenal.
Let's take community, for example. Mm-hmm. How is gunnercooke working in the community?
I had no idea that gunnercooke founded a bookshop and cafe in Manchester city centre called the House of Books and Friends to combat loneliness. I just was blown away when I realised this beautiful independent bookshop and cafe was created by gunnercooke when loneliness was at an all-time high during the pandemic, to create a space where people can come and have a coffee, and you can sign up to be part of their coffee buddy scheme, which I've signed up to now. And I couldn't believe this was, wow, so this is a bookshop and cafeteria in the centre. That was phenomenal. I was like, this is brilliant. So I've had lots of meetings in the bookshop because the coffee's great. But then I'd not been there very long, and it was the launch of the gunnercooke Scholars. So in my old world, that's work experience.
Right.
So gunnercooke Scholars or GC Scholars, I know that in professional services, it's really easy for sons, daughters, relatives of the partner solicitors to have work experience in the business. It's not who, what you know, it's who you know. We work with schools to also present students that haven't got that network, don't have those links, to give them a chance to come in and work in the environment. And the students don't know who is who. They don't know who's come from which introduction. And they have a programme in the London office and the Manchester office over the course of the week where they get to have an intensive programme of understanding gunnercooke, what it's like to be a lawyer, what it's like to have a squiggly career. And for me, that wasn't just offering work experience, that was offering something that was so much more. And then these scholars get to form an alumni and continue to grow their networks. I then find out there's the gunnercooke Foundation. I was like, right, okay, so we've got a bookshop, we've got this, this program. What's the foundation? And part of the gunnercooke Foundation is an organisation called Inspire. Inspire is a group of 160 charities, and we bring the CEOs together in regional hubs as a peer-to-peer support network to help those small charities who are fighting for the funding that's available to share ideas. And we also offer support to those CEOs and those charities through the gunnercooke Foundation, which guess what? We can use our volunteering days for if we've got a skill set that will lend itself to that charity. So I've joined a business that doesn't just say they're about purpose. I'm surrounded by purpose-led initiatives that, who knows where we'll go next.
Are there any final thoughts you'd like to leave with those that have tuned into the podcast today?
I think I've shared a lot about my journey. I've shared a lot about the projects I've worked on. I guess it's where do you start? Because there'll be some people listening that think this sounds great, you've done it, you've had projects, you've had teams, you've had budgets, where do you start? And my very simple response is start somewhere. It's just have a look at what's going on today. And if you're in a larger organisation, just look at one team, look at one department, look at one office. Just start somewhere and try something, and don't worry about having to conquer everything from day one.
Brilliant that you've taken the time to share your experience with everyone. Thank you so much.
Thank you, Tim.
Thank you for joining us. Please follow Powered by People, the podcast from Three Hills on people-powered transformation, on LinkedIn or wherever you access your podcasts. Join us next time for more inspirational insight from people leaders who craft people-first approaches that enhance revenue, profitability, and long-term value creation. We will see you next time for more Powered by People.